I'm not the one who admitted they would be okay with killing babies in foster care and killing children that have been abused.
That's not the point. What I'm saying.
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation.
Okay, so this viral situation ended up coming to a shocking conclusion over the last couple of days. I want to talk about it, but first, let's have a refresher.
On April 3rd, 2025, I, Savannah Craven and Tao, was brutally assaulted in the streets of Harlem while conducting interviews on Planned Parenthood. The entire shocking interaction was caught on camera by my husband, leaving no doubt that the assailant, Brianna J Rivers,
I am genuinely friendly and genuinely spread love.
Oh my God! Was not only guilty of aggravated assault, but also exulting over her own vicious criminal act.
I'm really sorry that I had to let her have it, but it really gets like that in these New York streets. How dare you come around trying to rage bait me? You don't know me from a hole in the wall, trying to sit here and stand on your 10 like you're tall. I am not with that shit. Hate it had to be you, but I bet you won't try that shit on 125 again.
Rivers was arrested and reportedly charged with felony assault.
Okay, originally this video was going to be called She Messed Around and Found Out. And I was going to leave it up to you guys to figure out who messed around and who found out.
We were just doing a street interview with my camera and everything was fine for over 20 minutes or however long we were filming, and then she just punched me in the face. Oh my God.
But then I got busy doing other stories. I think that was right around the time Carmelo Anthony happened. So I ended up getting distracted and I never did the video about it. Well, more recently, it came to a conclusion. And if you ask me, this case, even though some people are going to get mad at me, is what I would call when stupid meets stupid. Because if you're not familiar, the puncher in that situation was a woman by the name of Brianna J Rivers. Now, Brianna, even though I don't agree with her, she comes off as a fun, good times girl.
I love your skin tone too.
Thank you. Such a good vibe.
Of course.
Well, awesome.
She probably had come from happy hour. I know when she talked about this at a point on one of her Instagram streams, she made it sound like Savannah had just approached her, but that's in the video. And you get to see her walk up to Savannah.
You have a channel?
Yeah, we're doing some interviews today.
And then Savannah took the opportunity to interview her. And in my opinion, they really did have a good back and forth. But at a point, Savannah had kind of backed Brianna into a corner verbally.
You don't get to kill the baby just because their dad didn't want them.
You can.
Should we kill the kids in foster care? And
Why not? Why not, if that's the case?
We should kill the kids in foster care that aren't wanted.
And Brianna maybe regretted some things she had said, which I hate that social media has made people think that if you look silly or maybe you don't get your point across the way that you want to, then that means you have to hit them in order to gain your pride back, because I don't really think anything's that serious, but that's what happened. So that's where Brianna really messed up. But then when it comes to Savannah Craven does these videos where she does man on the street type interviews and tries to get a rise out of people.
What I'm saying is, in general, overall, if I don't want to have a baby, I should have the choice to
Just don't have sex then. Just don't have sex.
That's not even logical.
It is. It is.
Who are you, Nancy?
I sound dumb.
You
sound
do.
dumb.
I have no problem with that at all. But what I would say is if you're gonna be in the streets doing man on the street, you better have some street smarts. And I know, like I said, some people aren't gonna agree with what I'm saying right now. But what I would remind you is that I consider myself to be a true friend to my community. So I'm not gonna always tell you what you wanna hear. I'm gonna tell you what you need to hear. And even though I personally think that there is no reason for physical violence, especially when it comes to debate or people just talking, at the same time, if you're gonna be out in these wild streets of Harlem, New York, you might wanna be a little more aware than Savannah was. And the thing that really bothers me, because believe me, I'm not absolving Brianna J Rivers of her part in this. I definitely can admit that Brianna mishandled the situation worse than Savannah did. But I do have to say that Savannah should have done a better job of reading the body language and knowing when it was time to completely pull back.
I've literally encountered God.
So you spoke to God and he told you everything in the Bible. Shut the f- up.
He first spoke to me.
You sound dumb as
Besides just reading the body language, you can tell by her behavior and the fact that she had slightly impaired speech.
Listen, there's a thing called cosmopolitanism.
Which that should have told Savannah that she had been dealing with a person that was probably drinking a little bit.
And I truthfully was not in the right state of mind, so it was just not coming together the way that it should have.
And we all know when people have been drinking, things can get a little out of hand. Again, Savannah either didn't notice or she thought since this girl was buzzed, this is going to be good stuff. But for being a little bit drunk, Brianna really did offer some resources.
There's so many options, especially if you're like a teenager, especially in New York City.
Okay.
Children's Day Society, please reach out to them. They do a lot of free counseling, a lot of free clinical work, STD checks, abortion, all kind of things that you can go to speak to someone about if you aren't really sure before making the final decision.
As well as a different perspective from the pro-choice side.
A lot of people do not experience the same kind of lifestyle or childhood that I grew up with, having two parents and grandparents and people to look up to and things like that. So I definitely understand why people do abort children.
And also let Savannah know why sometimes a young woman might think that an abortion is necessary.
Me being a 14-year-old girl in the Bronx who's gone through any kind of molestation, anything, you really don't know what people go through.
And also included how it can be dangerous for a baby if a mother decides to keep it even after she feels like she should have had an abortion.
I have seen so many stories and countless, literally like countless stories. My grandmother used to teach health and safety classes for people who wanted to become daycare providers. And we've seen so many instances where it's just, I could love you today. I love you to death. You're my baby. But as a teen mom, as a mom who's on her own, you have no support. You constantly have to provide. You're here day to day, day in out. It's crying, it's screaming, it's crying. You have nowhere to turn to. Now I stand you up and I shake you and I kill you. When I could have just not had you in the first place because it was never my plan.
And then on Savannah's side, Savannah gave good information on how Planned Parenthood gets $700 million of taxpayer money.
Do you know that Planned Parenthood gets nearly $700 million of our taxpayer money every year?
$700 million?
And how she doesn't think $700 million of taxpayer money should be going to Planned Parenthood.
Just like how you said we shouldn't be forced to raise other people's kids, we shouldn't be forced to pay for other people's abortions, because half the country, they don't believe in abortions, whether that's for scientific reasons, for religious reasons, and we should respect that, right? If you want to go get a procedure, then you should be able to pay for it. Do you agree?
Not necessarily.
Or somebody else should pay for it.
Now you put me up in the air, because saying that we're paying for a procedure is like, you want to get a BBL and my taxpayer dollars are paying for your silicone. That's different.
Which is something I 100% agree with. By the way, what's up, everybody? Ty Rivera here, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world. Before we go any further, I'm just going to ask that you like, comment, and subscribe. But I did want to get back into this story because it really is terrible to me that it played out the way it played out, and that what's happening now is what's happening now. And we're going to get to that in just a second here. But like I said, I just wanted to set it up and let you guys know where I'm at as far as a lot of this goes. So basically, to catch you up, I'm split on this situation because I feel like Savannah should have known a little bit better about human nature and about body language and been able to read that situation a little bit better. And Brianna should have been better at controlling her temper and should not have given in to her urge to get violent, rather than just keeping it to words and debating the topic. But to get back to what I was talking about, I definitely don't think $700 million of taxpayer money should be going to Planned Parenthood one way or the other. Whatever they decide, I don't feel like that kind of money should be going to Planned Parenthood. If you got to figure out how to terminate a pregnancy, that's on you. But then Brianna said that there were things that taxpayer money goes to that she doesn't think taxpayer money should be going to, like the cops.
Yeah. I mean, if we're going to just, single out where it is that our tax dollars go, then the police, respectfully.
Which I definitely don't agree. Or like being sent to the Ukraine.
As opposed to us providing the money to the billions that we just supported in the Ukraine.
Which I definitely do agree that money should not be going to Ukraine. And it got a little bit heated for a minute there.
Our entire life is science and math, and I think you're an idiot if you don't think it is.
So you went from saying that my outfit was really cute to saying I'm an effing idiot. That's so mean.
But I think that your point of view is very obstructed, and I think that you just don't understand the magnitude of having a child.
But then there was definitely a point where it had come to a positive end, or the most positive end that it could possibly come to.
You need to just protect yourself if you can. And honestly, don't have babies with people who don't want to have babies with you.
And I felt like that would have been the perfect time to cut off, because Savannah had gotten what she wanted. Brianna was still happy enough with the way that the conversation went that she was ready to walk away, and they had kind of wrapped it up in a nice little bow, or as nice of a bow as it can be wrapped up in.
I agree with you.
I'm not disagreeing with you either. I understand.
In this kind of situation. But then there was a point that Brianna described later as Savannah getting condescending and aggressive.
As the interview went on, her demeanor kind of switched and her body language changed to condescending and confrontational.
And while I do agree that Savannah did get a bit condescending.
Yeah, well, I'm not the one who admitted they would be okay with killing babies in foster care and killing children that have been abused.
That's not the point.
It was definitely Brianna that got aggressive.
What I'm saying.
That's really...
I am so polite and friendly.
And so in a nutshell, that's the way it turned out. And at the end of the day, at that particular point, like when it ended, I completely was not on board with Brianna. She went into other things when she did her follow-up video about it, where she was talking about how Savannah had sicked her fans on her.
People are calling me a leftist and a delusional Democrat. I am being cyberbullied and body shamed by not only Savannah, but her thousands of supporters.
Which that's going to happen. Even if you don't choose to sick your fans on somebody, they are going to go after them. She also had mentioned that people were body shaming her. Welcome to the internet, sweetie. That's going to happen. Even if you do nothing at all to piss anybody off, they're going to body shame you. They're going to talk about your looks. That's just the way the internet worked. And especially when after you assault somebody, you're like, ow.
She attacked my wife.
Your wife just attacked me.
She was really acting up. I mean, she was acting up. So then what happened was, at a point, Brianna got arrested.
Now, if she come out of jail and she knocks your head in again, I don't want to hear no complaints. Because you see, you being shady and slick again.
And Savannah, of course, went the full route of pressing charges, filing a police report, everything like that, which I don't blame her for. But at the same time, if you know about the legal system, it's not always as clear cut as you would want it to be. And depending on the city you're in, it gets even more dicey. So that's where we are now. And I want to respond to Savannah's video that she posted about this particular situation and the way it played out. And I'll just tell you guys in real time the way that I feel about the way that this has all gone down. And I will remind you, my thoughts on this will not be perfect for most people, because I know most people have a lot more of a cut and dry where it's like, you just should never do this. And while I do agree with that, I plan for the world I live in and not the world that I want to live in. And that's the best advice that I can give absolutely anyone. That's something I would tell my own nephews and nieces and all of the people closest to me, is do not plan for the world that you want to live in. Hope for the world you want to live in, but plan for the world you actually do live in.
On April 3rd, 2025, I, Savannah Craven and Tao, was brutally assaulted in the streets of Harlem while conducting interviews on Planned Parenthood.
Okay, I agree, but as far as ass whoopings go, it was actually pretty tame. It was a couple of hits, maybe. I'm so sorry. Maybe you're not ready for it, but I'm sorry. I know I shouldn't be laughing at this, but I just have been on the streets a little bit too much, I would say, to where I wouldn't say that I'm desensitized to it. And I definitely would not say that Savannah deserved this. But as far as ass whoopings go, it was just a couple of hits that you weren't ready for. And while it shouldn't have happened, I don't really know that I would describe it as a brutal assault.
The entire shocking interaction was caught on camera by my husband, leaving no doubt that the assailant, Brianna J Rivers, was not only guilty of aggravated assault, but also exulting over her own vicious criminal act.
I also can't help but think that if it was really that brutal of an assault, your husband would have put the camera down and not recorded the entire thing. Call me crazy, but I just feel like if it had been that brutal, your husband would have done a little more.
Rivers was arrested and reportedly charged with felony assault. But after an interview with 2 prosecutors, I was informed that the felony had been downgraded to a misdemeanor. Despite indisputable video evidence of brutal assault and battery.
Okay, well, that's something I've talked about before on this channel, and that almost always happens. Things always get pleaded down. So while something may start off as a felony, it's not uncommon for it to turn into a misdemeanor. And I know a lot of people online are saying that this is what a lot of blue states are doing to bring down crime statistics, is not reporting things the way that they're supposed to be reported and not charging people with what they've actually done or convicting people of what they've actually done, which is bringing the numbers down. And I get that. But at the same time, if you ask anybody that spent any time dealing with the legal system from any end, you will find that this is very, very common. So I know that Savannah is trying to make this part of something bigger, and I'm sure it always does feel bigger when it happened to you, but this unfortunately is the way the legal system works. If people want to do something about that and maybe try to push their representatives to change the way that works, I'm all for that because my trouble years are over with. But as far as even back when I was young and I was getting in trouble, this was the way it worked. They would always plead things down.
Producing significant injury, trauma, and resulting in over $3,000 in medical bills.
And this is why you never go to the emergency room after getting your ass whooped. I probably shouldn't say that, but it's just true. And when I was younger, I got in my fair share of trouble. And there were points where I got the worst end of things for sure. But I didn't go to the emergency room over it. I went home and slept it off. One day I'll tell you guys, there were a couple of times that I got jumped. It's funny now. And at the time, I had a pretty good sense of humor about it too. So maybe I'm just a little off when it comes to these kinds of things because that was more common when you were Gen X. Like, I think this is also a generational thing to a certain degree, and in some cases a regional thing. Because if you grow up in Arizona, for example, which is obviously where I grew up, and I grew up in a smaller community in Arizona, getting in a fight every once in a while isn't really considered that big of a deal. When I moved to LA though, which by the time I moved to LA, I was already old enough that my fighting years were behind me. I'm not going to say I never had a scuffle in LA because there were probably 1 or 2 that happened while I was living there. But my point is, in LA, it really is this thing where if somebody gets in a fight or somebody hits somebody, everybody acts like, oh my God, they were out of control. Which if you're in Arizona, Nevada, Texas, all 3 of the other states that I've lived in outside of when I was in Los Angeles, California specifically, it just has been more of a like, sometimes that's going to happen type attitude.
Over the next few weeks, the office of the New York District Attorney, Alvin Bragg, infamous for its 2-tiered system of justice that favors criminals over victims, failed to pursue the case. On July 23, 2025, I find out the prosecution simply allowed this misdemeanor to be dismissed on speedy trial grounds, apparently due to the prosecution's failure to file a certificate of readiness. I was never advised by the prosecution that my case had essentially been abandoned. As a matter of fact, the prosecutor assigned to handle my case isn't even admitted to the New York bar, just an inexperienced law school graduate. Yet he was able to handle my case under a student practice rule, which is supposed to apply to only very minor offenses.
Okay, well, I can understand her frustration, and just like I said, when it happens to you, it definitely is worse than if you're maybe the assailant. But I do have to say, even though she thinks that this is a very important case, it's really not. And so keeping you informed about it isn't something that probably any prosecutor anywhere would do. I remember there was a time that I was kept posted because I was one of the witnesses, and it was when a cousin of mine had gotten pistol whipped to the point where they had to be air evac'd from one town to another because the situation and the, I guess, trauma was bad enough that they actually had to go to another city and it couldn't be handled in that town we were at. And so that situation, because of how bad it was, they kept us informed, and we had to give statements more than once on exactly what happened, what we saw. That person ended up going to prison for a little while. And that too probably plays into why I'm not really taking this as seriously as Savannah is. Because when you've seen that kind of thing, I personally got hit by a bullet in a drive-by. It was ricochet, and I think I've talked about it here on my channel before. But again, like when you've seen those kinds of things happen, and I've seen kind of a lot of things like that happen in my life where it was violence to that degree. So this situation where a person got hit a couple of times, yeah, that's bad, but it's not the prosecution is going to keep you in the loop every step of the way bad. So there will be certain decisions that in some cases will be made without you, especially when we're talking about New York, Harlem specifically, and the level of crime that they're probably dealing with in that city.
Prior to the dismissal, the prosecutors failed to communicate with me and with my lawyers. And the failure to communicate continued after my lawyers intervened on my behalf to try and find out how this case could be dismissed. To this day, my lawyers and I have received zero reply, despite multiple text messages, emails, and phone calls.
That's what dealing with the system is like in a lot of cases. So welcome to being a United States citizen, Savannah. Not that I'm implying that she was born or raised anywhere else, but she's clearly not used to the legal system, because when it comes to the prosecutor's office, they're not always the best at communicating with people. Even when it is a serious case, they're not the best at communicating with people. So even though you feel slighted, this is what a lot of Americans go through. And this is where I think you could help be a voice and use your platform to maybe help inspire some sort of change as far as that goes. Because maybe the prosecutor's office should be a little better at communicating, especially with other lawyers when they know they have eyes on them. It's just that in a lot of cases, they're used to getting away with this kind of behavior or ignoring things. And so it makes sense that they would treat it like this because they're used to just kind of blowing everybody off. So maybe I'm kind of getting won over by what Savannah's saying here.
It is inconceivable that a violent assault case such as this, one that received widespread media attention, including that shocking video, would be put into the hands of somebody not even admitted to the New York bar.
See, this is again where Savannah loses me, because I can't help but feel like if it really was that traumatic for you, I don't feel like you would have capitalized on that.
She has gained a large audience, and this is all over a provoked attack.
And again, I want you guys to be honest with me in the comments like you usually are. I don't expect you guys to just go along with me. If you agree with me, then agree with me. If you don't agree with me, let me know. But I do feel like the way that she really publicized this and made every dollar she could possibly make off of it, that she didn't really treat it like it was some sort of traumatic thing. Like, it seemed like it was content, and it seemed like she did like the attention that she got from it and the fact that she was able to get all these clicks.
Savannah has used this clip as an opportunity to finally have her social platforms go viral and monetize.
And I don't blame her. Honestly, as a content creator, you do want viral moments. I personally, though, do not want viral moments to the point where I would antagonize somebody when I know that the situation is getting ready to explode, when I know that there's a chance that I could put myself in some sort of physical danger, or possibly end up getting socked up like she did. And I do think that that's a little bit of a dangerous game for Savannah to be playing, especially if this is the way she's going to react, especially if she's going to be a complete victim after it happens. I don't think that you should put yourself in that situation in the first place, because clearly you're not built for the smoke, as the kids say.
Who then allowed for the case to be dismissed. It is hard to avoid the conclusion that this case was deliberately sabotaged. To this day, my assailant, Brianna J Rivers, continues to show zero remorse and make jokes about her act of violence toward me and other pro-lifers.
I don't really know if Brianna J Rivers has done that. Like I said, I really don't support Brianna's behavior, but I don't really know if she's talking about having committed violence to Savannah and other pro-lifers. I know that she wasn't necessarily remorseful.
Savannah continuously interrupted my thoughts, and she rage baited me by attempting to dictate what I was saying. I'm very upset that I allowed this woman to railroad me into becoming so angry
when it came to Savannah. And I think that that's something that Brianna really needs to work on, because if you don't understand what's wrong with your behavior and you have no plans of correcting it, there's a good chance you're going to end up doing something stupid like that again. And the next time you do it, you could end up getting hit with the full weight of the law, because when judges see the same person over and over and realize that people aren't correcting their behavior, that's when they usually will throw the book at you, because they're like, okay, you don't learn. Apparently, us being lenient with you in the past didn't do you any favors, and maybe you do need some time in jail to cool your heels. So I will look into that, but I don't really know that that's what she's doing. On the other video that I saw where she was talking about it, like I said, she hadn't learned her lesson.
And Savannah, like the temptress of trouble she is, continued to flip my words on this very slippery subject.
But I didn't notice her saying that she thought that that was something that needed to happen all the time, or she was now making it like her vigilante mission to hurt pro-lifers.
I do not want clicks, fame, or sympathy for what happened to me.
Oh, you want all of those things. You're definitely going to lose me on that, Savannah, because like I said, the way that you posted this everywhere and the way you used it for maximum clickbait, there's no way that you didn't want clicks, fame, and sympathy. That's definitely what you wanted. And on this, I will make no apologies for saying that, because I know what it looks like when a person is really milking something, and you should. It happened. It was a thing you had to go through, so you definitely should. But to boldface lie and be like, I don't want any of those things, you never would have started a channel if you didn't want any of those things. We got to be honest with each other if we're going to do this, Savannah. We got to be honest.
I want justice for the countless pro-life and conservative activists that go out and peacefully stand up for what they believe in. And justice for the thousands of preborn children who will be aborted today, tomorrow, and the next. No one on either side of the aisle should experience physical violence for using their First Amendment right. Shame on you, Alvin Bragg.
To be 100% honest, right at the end there, I feel almost like she was working a little bit off of the Charlie Kirk situation in what she said, and trying to ride a little bit of that on really stressing the violence that's happening to people on the right. And while I am on the right, I still don't really think goading people for clickbait and then turning into a complete victim once it happens is the best strategy. And I feel like it's a little bit disingenuous. And like I said, I know some of you are going to disagree with me. I know that there's a chance some of you are going to get mad at me, but I don't want to lie to you and make it seem like I'm any way other than I am. And I do want to stress that I just have come from too many places, Phoenix, Austin, Las Vegas, and even parts of LA, to tell you the truth. It's just, I was a lot dealing with people in the entertainment industry in LA. But if you know anything about LA, and when I was living in MacArthur Park, like that's one place where I can definitely say violence was an everyday thing for the locals. But I stayed away from all of that for the most part. I would see it happen sometimes just because I'd be in the park and like a random fight would break out. And obviously that's where MS-13 is based. And so there was that in the neighborhood, but I personally wasn't a part of it. It wasn't really a part of my LA experience. But LA itself, for me to make it sound like it is just completely against violence, that wouldn't be true either. It was just the circles I ran in and the industry I was in really did make it so if a person got physical with another person, it was completely off limits, and in some cases would get you blackballed or banned because it just wasn't the way that things work in the entertainment industry. But if you think about even LA and what a lot of people know about it and gang life and stuff like that, that city too, you could say that it is common in. So I guess I've kind of always lived in a fuck around and find out world, whether I wanted to or not. So I don't really think that you can antagonize people and then turn into a complete victim, even if you were in fact a victim. And I don't think what happened to you should have happened to you. I still can't help but be like, okay, well, what did you learn from it, Savannah? How would you handle that in the future? How have you maybe studied body language now, or maybe if you've thought about the situation and maybe what you could have done differently to not push it to that end? Because like I said, and have shown, and if you watch the full video, I'll put a link to the video itself, Savannah's version of it, which is the full interview. I'll put that in the pinned comment and you guys can see for yourselves the way that the conversation went and where there were different points where you could feel the tension from watching it, and then there were points where the tension got released, and there was definitely a point where it was a good out. And to push it past that because you're trying to possibly milk this for a couple extra views, that's one of those situations where you took the gamble, and it's called gambling for a reason, because sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. And because of that, I can't help but go back to, this is kind of what happens when stupid meets stupid. And I wouldn't be surprised if the prosecutors watched the full video, watched the full interview, and kind of had the same feeling where it's sort of like, okay, I can see how this was kind of antagonized. And even though some people may not agree with the decision they ultimately made to completely dismiss it and not even charge her with the misdemeanor, which that I can somewhat understand, it might have been, in their opinion, the smartest and most efficient thing to do, rather than make a bigger deal of it than they had to and use even more taxpayer money to prosecute this thing that they probably weren't going to get much out of anyway. And that's truly where I'm at on it. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. If you want to see a video of me talking about the Broza Park story, click the video on your screen. Other than that, as always, thank you for watching. This has been Ty Rivera, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world.